the ousting of Tucker Carlson from Fox News. What does that mean if you're a business owner? What does it mean for capitalism? How important is his voice to freedom, to everything that we need in terms of having a foundation in place to succeed as entrepreneurs and business owners? The political topic. We haven't done a political topic in a minute here. So this one is why Tucker Carlson is a necessary voice in our country and for capitalism. That's sort of my take on it. There's a lot of different articles out about Tucker Carlson. In fact, there's probably thousands of them, and this just happened in the last 24 hours. It's Tuesday. This took place yesterday on Monday. It's amazing how fast news travels. Anyway, the interesting thing was there's an article here about Megyn Kelly, and Megyn Kelly was a star at Fox News, and then she eventually decided to leave there. She went to NBC. That didn't work out so well for her, but she's doing really well just independently. YouTube. She's got a show on Sirius XM Radio. So all sorts of different places where she's doing well. So it's kind of the last time someone who was doing really well at the top of their game. I think she was at the top of her show ratings, and then Tucker actually took over after she did, and then Bill O'Reilly got in trouble, and Tucker took over after Bill O'Reilly was essentially fired himself. And so it's interesting over the last several years, and you guys have all seen this, like he's the highest rated cable news TV talk show host out there. He's far and away number one. His time slot, he gets more views than CNN and MSNBC combined. Again, these are just the facts, but my take on it was I wanted to look at it from, well, if I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner, how does Tucker Carlson's voice help me? And where does he, make people have to be accountable? So as I think over the last 3 years, you think of some of the government policies where a lot of small business owners were forced to close their doors. They were forced to be closed during the pandemic. They had all these different challenges. And there weren't a lot of people out there who were asking, is this the best policy? Is this really necessary? And so many businesses went out of business during that time. And I remember one of the things, and again, you can, like anybody, you can read one side and just say, oh, Tucker Carlson's terrible. He's this, he's that, he's racist, whatever. But if you actually listen to him and read what he actually says or listen to him on a consistent basis, you'll realize that a lot of times what you hear is not true. And so that's why it's important to actually listen to what people are saying and kind of decide for yourself instead of someone else telling you. Here's what I like about him. I like that he always wants to make the government accountable. One of the things that's really crazy is the debt that the government has. He was always talking about that. Well, how does that affect business owners? Interest rates have gone up significantly. How does that affect business owners? So he was always, and it wasn't like, the big businesses like Facebook, Meta, big, huge conglomerates that they don't actually need help. It's the small business owner that needs help. And I always appreciated his perspective in wanting to help the small business owner, and let's hold the government accountable. And let's make sure that, it's so funny. I'm helping my daughter finish her final classes to graduate high school. And this government class asked, what are some ideas you have to increase the revenues for the government? That was the question. How can we increase revenue for the government? And I'm like, well, maybe we should reverse and actually, how can we spend our money better? What if we had a balanced budget amendment and we, had to be like a real family? Like if we spend more than we are, we're going to be screwed and go bankrupt, right? But our government doesn't seem to have to follow those rules. These are the things that I like about someone like Tucker that asks these difficult questions. And you know what else I like about him? He would call Democrats out, of course, but a lot of people don't realize he called Republicans out all the time. That's what we need. We need someone who holds everybody accountable. So that's kind of my take on it. What's your response to Mr. Tucker Carlson being fired by Fox?
Yeah, I mean, when you really break it down, the news has completely lost touch with what it was even designed to be. The reason I personally liked listening to and following Tucker Carlson is I felt like he always did a really, really good job of educating himself on the topic, educating himself on the matter. And even though I felt like a lot of his things were a little bit extreme and a little bit drastic. I felt like he educated himself. He made his own conclusions and he said it how he felt it was. And so it really helped me get a take and educate myself on his perspective. Whereas I feel like a lot of these people nowadays are just doing exactly what their station tells them to do. They're not willing to do their own homework. They're not willing to do their own research. Whereas I felt like that's something that he actually always did.
Yeah, exactly right. And so he did. He just kind of, hey, here's where the truth is taking me. And you look at a lot of the big, so that's kind of, that's another question, right? Like media right now, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was controlled by these big TV stations, and now they're losing that battle. And the further they go away from actually being real and authentic, and also the fact that, you know, you bring someone on and you give them 30 seconds to say something, it's pretty hard for them to actually explain something in a way you understand it, make a really valid point, because these shows are so condensed. What seems to be working is a Joe Rogan podcast that's, 2-3 hours long, and he can actually dig and unpack a topic and get to the truth of it with somebody on there. And that's kind of what Tucker Carlson now will have the ability to do. And you look at all these different media companies that are popping up that are online, and they have a podcast, and they have YouTube, and they have all these different places that they're going live. Like that's where there's a shift. And so it's almost going to be, almost like where young kids look at Facebook and like, oh, that's old. That's grandpa's and grandma's thing. Facebook's old. It's dying. And they look at the younger social media, and it's the same thing. Like a lot of CNN and Fox has very old viewers. And as that continues to shift over to digital spaces, those companies are probably going to be left behind.
Exactly, right. You're right. If you want to dive into something quite a bit deeper, you're going to jump into a podcast. You're going to figure out who you like to listen to, who you like to follow. At this point, Leo, I've gotten to the point where with breaking news situations, forget the big news stations. All they care about is getting more viewers, getting more clicks. For example, a couple weeks ago, there was a report of an active shooter situation in a nearby school, a school right by my house, a few miles down. And so I get on our local news and it says active shooter, blah, 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 shelter in place, whatever it was. So I jump on Twitter, and immediately, right when I get on Twitter, I can see that, it was fake. Someone called it in. It was a fake report. Everything's fine. And these are coming from people with the blue check marks, like legitimate reports that it was fake. And the local news did not change their report on that for 6 hours, because they're getting all sorts of clicks on people thinking that there's an active shooter at this school in Spanish Fork, Utah. You know damn well they knew that was fake hours beforehand, but they leave that up there just to get people to click on it, just to see the panic set in. And it's bogus. I'm sick of it. I look at Twitter for breaking news, and I follow podcasts and people that I trust and believe when it comes to really diving deeper into a matter.
100%, and I get home nowadays, and it's the end of the day, and Jill and I are sitting in bed, and we're like, what should we watch? And regular TV just doesn't do it anymore. Honestly, Tucker was like one of the last things of regular TV that I actually watched. But these days, if it's a news thing, I'll go to YouTube. So this Tucker Carlson thing came out. I sure as hell didn't go to Fox News. I didn't go to CNN. I went to YouTube. And people that I trust, people that I like, people that keep it real, that are authentic, that try and be objective in both sides of it, I looked at what they were saying. And that's where I get my news. And so YouTube, you can prop this video up and send it viral, because we are giving you a shout out. Honestly, I feel like YouTube and Twitter and Elon are doing a great job. Like these digital networks do a better job of getting me the content that I want said, and it's in real time, and it's amazing. It's amazing just in the last 24 hours how many people picked up that story and really tried to unpack it in a way. And you're right, like just the slow, regular news organizations and TV news just doesn't do it anymore. And I don't even like to watch regular TV anymore. I hate it. So I'm pulling stuff up on YouTube or whatever, and I enjoy that a lot more.
We've got to talk about this, Leo. As much as I want to get into the sports, that's probably where I have a lot of knowledge and whatnot. But we've got to talk about this, because this is the most asinine,
just another Biden administration bullshit
I have
thing
ever seen. Because my mother-in-law, she's all about every conspiracy theory out there, right? This big winter we had is because of cloud seeding and China wanting to give us this crazy winter so we don't have crops. And if you believe it, that's great. That's fantastic. Do your research. But she brought this to my attention about a week ago, and I was like, no chance. But what it is
wild.
The Biden admin has put this in. She told me it was executive order. Is that true, or do you know?
I think so. This was one of Tucker's final messages before he was fired.
So what they're doing is the Biden admin put this in place to charge higher fees to those with good credit and lower fees to those with poor credit when it comes to mortgages. Meaning, if you have credit below like 680, I think is what the threshold was,
680 was
you get a lower interest rate than someone with good, strong credit. It was like 2% lower or something.
And the guy with the 680 credit score, the guy and gal with good credit, you're paying an extra bonus fee of like $40 or $50 a month to go help that person with shitty credit get a lower interest rate and a lower mortgage payment.
So bad credit. This
is not made up news. Like, this is legit. Like, this is what the Biden administration is doing. Because, hey, why should I have to have good credit? I should get a good rate and be able to buy a house, even though I never pay my bills on time. That makes sense.
Right. I can see if you're lower income class, maybe having a special rate discount for lower income class is great, by all means. But to punish someone that's taken good care of their finances, like, that's like saying, you know what, you're in really, really good shape. You never have to go to the doctor, and your insurance is higher. This fat ass gets it really, really cheap. Or, you know what, you're a terrible driver, so we're going to give you cheaper insurance. That person that's never, ever been in an accident, they
can afford to pay an extra.
Give me a break. That is ridiculous. I mean, if I'm Trump or DeSantis, whoever it ends up being, I would blow this thing up, because this is the most illogical thing that I don't understand it. I just can't understand what they're trying to accomplish here.
There is no understanding. It's basically just flipping things on its head, and not in a good way, and saying, we're not a meritocracy society anymore. You just get free shit because we're politicians. We want to give you free shit. Don't worry about it. You don't have to work for anything anymore. And that's why our government debt is now up to $31 trillion. That's why the U.S. dollar as the official reserve currency is being questioned. That's why a country like China is coming up. And if we don't get our stuff together as a country, like, this is why Ray Dalio is out there saying there's a new changing world order, because our leaders are not leading us to where we need to go. And it's going to, and these are all foundational items that if we want to be entrepreneurs and have freedom and live in the best country in the world and have those opportunities, like, these things will go away for our kids if we're not careful. And it's amazing how quickly it can change. I remember just this guy from Venezuela who was a business owner who was driving us around Uber at Orlando like a year ago. And he talked about how quickly Hugo Chavez was able to ruin that country that had wealth, that had business owners so quickly. And it's these types of things that are going to ruin it. And this is the type of stuff that Tucker used to report on. So,
yeah. And again, if you're watching that saying, oh, they just don't understand that, blah, blah, blah. Look, again, I would be all for giving low-income earners a better interest rate. Teachers, police officers, things like that. I am all for giving them a better interest rate. But to reward someone for not taking care of their credit, for not paying their bills, that just doesn't make
And you know
sense.
who usually has wonderful credit? Teachers, police officers, firemen, like people who serve our community, and helping them out because they serve our community makes all the sense in the world. And most of them do have wonderful credit because they are great people.
They understand accountability.
And so that's the thing. Even somebody who doesn't make a lot of money can have great credit and gets rewarded for it with a lower interest rate on their mortgage, and finding ways for them to be able to get into houses and help them out with a lower down payment because it's hard for them to save money makes sense, right? That makes sense. No one's disputing that. But when we just give people who don't deserve it something for nothing, like, that's what's messing up our country. So,
yep.